On December 19, 1864, the Ladies' Sanitary Association of St. Thomas Episcopal Church in Philadelphia gave a holiday fair for the benefit of sick and wounded black soldiers. In advertising their event, the African American Association wrote, "It is a duty we all owe to assist in quelling this unholy rebellion of slave power and sustaining the U.S. government in establishing universal freedom." As the United States entered what would be its last Christmas season during the Civil War, charity and relief organizations struggled to find ways to bring aid, comfort, and holiday cheer to wounded soldiers, freedmen, and other groups affected by the war. Christmas time during the Civil War became both an escape from and a reminder of the adversities of war. While many soldiers looked forward to a day of rest, others experienced no respite from the drudgery of duty. At home, families did their best to celebrate, but worries about loved ones and the stresses of a wartime economy often overshadowed any festivities. Above all else, Christmas of 1864 was a time of reflection in which most Americans found themselves struggling to imagine what the future held for themselves, their loved ones, and their country. Although Confederate General Robert E. Lee and his Army of Northern Virginia were besieged at Richmond and Petersburg, and Union General William T. Sherman was advancing through Georgia, the outcome of the war seemed not yet entirely certain. With civilian and military necessities in short supply, it would be a difficult Christmas for many, and yet another harsh winter for all. For Civil War charities working year-round, the holiday season became an important moment to remind Americans of the needs of soldiers, freedmen, and others who were suffering under the burdens of war. Sanitary fairs, like the one held by the Ladies' Sanitary Association of St. Thomas Episcopal Church, became important fundraising events for charitable organizations during the holiday season. Over the course of the war, these festivals became one of the most popular means of fundraising for the Union cause, raising millions of dollars for the medical and humanitarian care of Union soldiers. For African American communities, these fundraising efforts became vital tools for providing much-needed food, clothing, and other forms of assistance to black soldiers who often lacked the most basic supplies provided to white Union soldiers. While the Ladies' Sanitary Association in Philadelphia became an important charitable organization in the state of Pennsylvania, many other black charitable organizations, often helmed by women, formed all across the country in order to fill the needs of African Americans. In Indiana, Clarissa Hill and Minerva Williams formed a committee to aid African American soldiers who, they argued, quote, are far from home, battling for the rights of their brethren and the cause of freedom. The Colored Soldiers Aid Society formed in Chicago, Illinois in 1883, and black women organized similar societies in Virginia and Kentucky. Women in these organizations not only successfully raised funds, but they also were able to deploy money and supplies quickly and efficiently. Satara Douglas and the Colored Ladies Freedom's Aid Society of Chicago, for example, responded immediately when they heard refugees in Kansas needed help. They quickly shipped clothing, cooking utensils, food, and other essentials, declaring, "We feel a very deep interest in the cause of the freedmen and hope to be found with liberal hands and hearts, ever willing to administer to their wants." African American women, through their charitable organizations, were able to fulfill an important role during wartime by assisting soldiers and the families of troops, nursing the wounded and sick, sending food and other goods, writing letters for the illiterate, sewing clothes, and raising money. One of the most well-known women who raised money for African American soldiers and freedmen was Elizabeth Keckley. Born as a slave in Dinwiddie County, Virginia, Keckley purchased her freedom in 1855 with money she earned as a seamstress. After her arrival in Washington, D.C. in 1860, her skills as a dressmaker quickly earned her commissions from several of the city's leading women, and eventually First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln hired Keckley as her personal seamstress. During her time in D.C., Keckley became concerned with the welfare of the freedmen she saw arriving in large numbers at the nation's capital. In 1862, she founded the Contraband Relief Association, which offered food, clothing, and shelter to newly freed African Americans. Keckley came up with the idea of forming the CRA after she witnessed the fundraising activities of relief associations catering to white soldiers. She later wrote, "If the white people can give festivals to raise funds for the relief of suffering soldiers, why should not the well-to-do colored people go to work to do something for the benefit of suffering blacks?" I could not rest. The thought was ever present with me, and the next Sunday I made a suggestion in the colored church that a society of colored people be formed to labor for the benefit of the unfortunate freedmen. The idea proved popular, and in 2 weeks the Contraband Relief Association was organized with 40 working members. Keckley also wrote about the horrible conditions she witnessed in a refugee camp in Alexandria, Virginia, and recognized that on the difficult path to freedom, former slaves were not going to find, quote, flowery paths, days of perpetual sunshine, and bowers hanging with golden fruit. But instead, she argued, the road was rugged and full of thorns. She saw that too often freedmen escaping into the city were met with cold neglect, and that it was the duty of well-off African Americans to help alleviate the crisis. In 1864, Keckley changed the name of the Contraband Relief Association to the Ladies, Freedmen, and Soldiers Relief Association in order to reflect its expanded mission of also providing aid to African American soldiers. Although Keckley's organization was based in Washington, D.C., the funds and services distributed through the Ladies' Freedom and Soldier Relief Association helped African American families in the larger metropolitan region. Keckley's organization also called upon the independent black churches for a place to hold meetings and events, such as the 12th Baptist Church, the 15th Street Presbyterian Church, and the Israel African Methodist Episcopal Church. Together, they organized concerts, speeches, dramatic readings, fairs, and festivals. Prominent black figures who spoke on behalf of the organization included Frederick Douglass, Henry Highland Garnett, and J. Sella Martin. In their first year of operation, Keckley's organization raised $838.68, approximately $600 of which was given and raised by black-run organizations such as the Freedmen's Relief Association of District of Columbia, Waiters of Metropolitan Hotel, and the Young Misses of Baltimore. African American women like Elizabeth Keckley in Washington, D.C., Clarissa Hill in Indiana, and Satara Douglas in Illinois could not vote in political elections, nor could they fight in the war as soldiers, but their efforts in creating networks of relief and charity to freedmen and the black soldiers proved invaluable in the effort to win the war. At a meeting of the Pennsylvania Equal Rights League, abolitionist activist William D. Forton argued that these women braved the storms of winter, the exhausting heat of summer, risk disease in hospitals, and face uncomplainingly the insults and indignities of our heatless enemies. To distribute clothing and comfort to those whose suffering would have passed unheeded and not relieved.